So this is a 2 exhibition project. This is the first iteration of In Parallel. It's an exhibition that features 6 artists from Toronto and the surrounding areas: Rouzbeh Akbari, Joy T. Arkin, Aileen Kuchi, Simon Fa, Annie Jordan, and Julia Rose Sutherland. In Parallel is inspired by the ways in which we can conceptualize and think through different community issues and interests and cultural practices in parallel with each other. The concept of being in parallel is one that honors the boundaries and the differences of each community while still fostering a sense of kinship and empathy for the differences and similarities that exist between the communities. Through their process, these artists are confronted with the impact of colonial violence and erasure, because as they're trying to learn about languages, cultural practices, histories, and memories, they're confronted with the fact that there are a lot of gaps and a lot of changes and a lot of distortions in the knowledge that's available to them. And so a lot of them are coming up with different ways of filling those gaps with critical fabulations and imaginations that offers them and us, the audience, a way of exploring their own interests and, the way that they're celebrating resistance practices as a way of generating cultural gatherings and kinships.
For the most part, each artist is exhibiting between 3 to 4 works. The only exceptions are Joy and Simon, who have done very kind of site-specific works. So here in the Fleck Claire story, we have commissioned a piece by Joy T. Arkin, and as Joséphine mentioned, it is titled Decoded. This specific piece really explores, the language, the preservation of language, but also how to thrive in uncertainty and also how to respect boundaries. So in this particular piece, Joy has created on both sides of the Claire story this kind of beautiful wall piece made out of vinyl, where viewers are able to use a small decoder lens that kind of see the message that is encoded within this design. What's really unique about this work, however, is that while we can see the message that comes through, it is written in Cree and no translation is provided. And this is done purposefully because the artist is trying to really put out there that, in this way, we are acknowledging this language that has, in kind of lack of better words, that has been lost, that has been stripped away from these communities. And so therefore it is acknowledging both the kind of preservation of this language while also respecting the fact that not everything always needs to be translated, that there can be magic in something that is left uncertain.
And what's really exciting about the magic that Jacqueline was talking about in Joy T. Arkin's work, it's extremely interactive and playful, and it's really giving space to be able to find curiosity and awe and a sort of interest and something that ultimately you'll never fully understand, and still finding a way to make space for that, right?
So Simon has created also a piece made out of vinyl, and what he's done is he has translated the Humber Valley River and the Don Valley River in a way that we are looking at the rivers before they were straightened by settlers. This is particularly important because we think about, this straightening of this river, and we can think about and start to imagine the kinds of consequences that has had upon the community, both in terms of people, but also in terms of landscape and in terms of wildlife, ecosystem. In doing this, we are kind of confronted with the past and also kind of pushed in a way or encouraged to think about what it is now and kind of negotiate the differences, negotiate the kind of tensions that exist within that change. And then upstairs in the North Gallery, we have about three pieces per artist, give or take. Anique Jordan in this show is exhibiting 3 photographs. Aileen Kuchi has a number of sculptures, one big drum piece, and then two freestanding sculptures, as well as an interactive audio piece that comes also accompanied with a woven sculpture. And Julia Rose Sutherland has a neon sign and a bonnet that is made out of felt with porcupine quills that have been delicately placed in the front and in the back of the bonnet. Julia Rose Sutherland also has a tea piece that is red rose tea bags woven together into the size of what looks like the individual Hudson Bay Company blanket, and that's suspended from the ceiling. Then we have Nuruzbeh Akbari, who is showing two lenticular prints, as well as one film that he co-directed with his artistic collaborator. And what was really kind of interesting about making this group exhibition was we also did look into the institutional history at the power plant. And what we found was that the very first exhibition when the power plant opened as the power plant was a group exhibition called Toronto, A Play of History, Un Jeu d'Histoire. And it was a group exhibition that also featured Torontonian artists that really questioned the mainstream. What is the mainstream? And at that time, the mainstream, as it was defined by the curator, was this shift from major institutions to artist-run centers. And in a way, they are challenging that mainstream. They're challenging that notion. They are rethinking how they fit into the institution and if they want to fit into the institution or not. So there was something really unique about how each artist operates and how they work and how they navigate through the world, through their pieces, of course.
So that to us was really interesting, is that institutions right now, we're seeing a shift where the marker of success is, are we able to bring in communities in the spaces? What kind of access are we thinking about? And who's even interested in coming in through the doors and looking at the works because they feel like it's for them? And so these artists are really teaching that for us also.
If the previous definition of success is being collected and acquired, in a major institution, that usually comes at a certain career point in the artist. Whereas here, everyone is at a different age, everyone's at a different stage, and yet you can still have this really cohesive and tight-knit show without having to think about, oh, well, that person has a certain status, or this person is just, finished school or things like that. So we really did away with all of those categories. And that's kind of what we felt was a really strong part about the premise.
Curatorially, as we're thinking about, what is the mainstream and sort of undoing that and challenging that, we're also part of the power dynamics of an institution by selecting artists and not selecting others. And so we're very aware of the fact that we are also in a system that's perpetuating that. And so for us to have artists that comes in and sort of challenge these institutional structures and ways of knowing was really exciting and important.